Good morning, y'all. It's a beautiful morning. Listen, today's going to be a fun video. You want to know why? Because I'm going to tell you how I went from the chicken guy at Costco, and that wasn't even the first thing that I did. Plenty of jobs before then. To having a beautiful view that I get to look out at every single day in the Mediterranean, right? But this video is to explain to you how none of this shit's going to make sense on paper. On paper, you're going to look at it and be like, but this doesn't make sense. How did you end up at this? And it's because it all eventually comes around full circle. It's incredible how these things work. But especially if you're going through the grind right now and you're thinking you're doing a bunch of shit that you're like, dude, you know something? This is such a waste of my time and I'm never going to get here because I am so far away from that end. We're going to take care of it all. I'm going to go through it all today. Another coffee talk with Uncle Rami. Beautiful coffee, already ready to go. To be honest with you, before we get into this, I actually already made the video. Not the entire thing, but the coffee portion. I was making coffee and I forgot the microphone. You could barely hear me. And I feel so bad, but you wanna know something? This is the beauty of this channel. I ain't ever gonna stop. We won't stop until we're on top. You know what I'm saying? So regardless, next time I promise, I'll make sure all of my shit's in order. I apologize sincerely. I know you guys like watching me make the coffee, but listen, I got you the coffee. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a good time, okay? We're going to have a beautiful time. So regardless, without further ado, let's get into today's video. I even put out fruits for you. You know what I'm saying? Eat, please. Come on. Have something. Have something. It's so funny. By the way, OJ, like a gentleman. I know what you're thinking, Uncle Rami, you're not tucked in. Listen, dude, you have to understand something. In the morning, the tuck-in is just not necessary. You can, obviously, there's always room for it, but it's not an ironclad rule in the morning because morning talks are incredibly casual and you want to make sure you keep, that casualness with it. It's funny, I even tuck in when I sleep a lot of times, but it feels like the vibe of this video, it's like we're in the med, we're having a coffee. Speaking of, it's game time, man. It's absolutely game time for some coffee. It's funny, so part of the reason why I started doing the coffee talks, even though it's only my second video, but how I came up on the idea was actually how my very first job was I was 13, 14, and my dad and his entire family on my dad's side, my grandfather, my grandmother, my dad, my uncle, and my aunt, they had a restaurant. We had a restaurant going up. It was a steakhouse. A lot of people are like, dude, you had a steakhouse and stuff? It was extremely local. For blue-collar workers, that was our demographic. People that would come home, after working at the car factory for a while. That was our clientele. Very much people that just like corporate, 9-to-5ers, people working in factories, majority of them. Just really good people. It's funny, they never wanted like the hoity-toity. We've never really liked that just because we feel like it's fake, and those people are just so real, incredibly kind, and those are the people you want to serve. But I came up with that idea, and it's funny, it's actually kind of congruent with who I am, but they used to have coffee every morning, them five. And then sometimes, other people would be involved in that coffee morning, but it was always them five. They would sit down and have a coffee, sometimes for 10, 15 minutes before the day started, sometimes an hour. And that's actually how I thought of it, and it was like, dude, I like the idea of taking what we did before, at least with my family, and move that forward in some sort of way. Absolute blast. But first sip of the day, can't wait. Oh, yeah, perfect. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. And I don't know if you noticed, but we got some fruit out. This is going to be a nice little hangout. But in the process of this hangout, because I won't just sit here silently looking at you, but I'm going to go through my work history and how none of it makes sense. Oh. Uncle Rami, did you dangle a donut? Yeah, bro, of course I did. A little bit of jump rope, a little bit of movement. Sip to follow like a gentleman. Oh, yeah, that's incredible. Anyways, my very first job was working at my father's restaurant. And I was about 13, 14 years old, and I'd help him prep in the back. I'd be cutting meat. I was basically those guys. I don't know if you guys ever seen that movie with Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell, where it's like meat first, I was basically me, you know, like I would do that, and that was just through the summers because my parents were really into me in schooling. That's something about immigrants know this. Parents are all about schooling. Get A's, get A's, get A's. I got A's and it was completely useless, but it's a story for another day. My very first job was prepping in the background, in the back. And like I said, I was about 13, 14. I'd just do that through the summer. And then my very, very first job that I had outside of the restaurant was ABC Warehouse. It was basically a warehouse company that, like, you know, a bunch of appliances, ovens, stoves, TVs, refrigerators. And so it was actually my first job, you know, not doing it for my family. To be honest with you, it was very, very weird for me just because I'm like, why would I work with anybody? Like, I always thought in my head, like, why wouldn't you just work with family? Like, why would I work for anybody else? Doesn't make any sense to me. And I still actually kind of feel that way, as funny as it sounds, but sometimes you have to go through it to understand. And that job was through the summer. It was during Ramadan. And for those of you that don't know, Ramadan is a month where we fast, sunrise to sunset. Technically, it's dawn to dusk, you know, so it's actually before sunrise. But I was having to do that, and oh my gosh, I kid you not, dude. It was like 93 degrees back there, and I was sweating my ass off. I'd have to fix stuff, and it was actually funny. I actually learned how to fix a lot of things as a result. I never really cared to, you know, be the guy who can fix things. In my head, I'm like, why wouldn't I be the guy that can pay the guy to fix things, you know? I like knowing how to do stuff just enough to be able to detect bullshit. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty in my head, I'm like, I don't know. I never was super crazy interested in it. I always felt like, oh, my time could be better used elsewhere. But it's always good just to, even then, forearms. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of that blind stuff is like, you just have to have crazy wrist strength, you know? But I'd have to pick up these refrigerators with a dolly. This thing was quadruple my size. At the time, I was, you know, 16. I think at that point, I have actually like doing push-ups and stuff. Nothing crazy lifting-wise. Dude, I'm so happy about this fruit. So happy about it. Yeah. Kiwi is so slept on. I was sleeping. I know that because I was once sleeping on kiwis. Kiwis are ridiculous. So I did that for the summer. And I actually learned a lot from that first job, mainly because I was working with a lot of questionable characters. You know, drug users for sure. A little bit low class, let's just call it what it is. Like one guy came up to me and says, "Do you want to play pockets?" And I'm like, "What the hell is pockets?" I'm 16. You know, grew up in a really good family. He's like, whoever has more money in their pocket gets to keep the other guys. I'm like, and in my head, I keep on, I'm 16. I'm like, well, even if I have more money in my, which I knew I had more money at the time in my pocket because I just cashed a check from them. And I kid you not. I kid you not, man. I'm like, even if I have more, he's gonna rob me after work. Like that's just the type of character I was dealing with. The manager of the store there would leave for like 4 hours a day to go work out and just go do whatever. He was living the life. And then when the regional managers would come in, that's when you realize everyone pretends they've been doing a bunch of work. And that's when I realized, like, oh, corporate is just fake. Like everyone's just pretending to do stuff to look like they're doing stuff. And the ones that can articulate the bullshit the best seem to go the furthest. It's unbelievable. And that's when I really had my first awakening moment. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But what I will say is I was working out in the back. My job was just, I was a stock boy. I'd stock stuff and then I would bring refrigerators out to people's car, like big items, you know, and I would take it out to their car and make sure everything was done correctly. And then the next following summer, I worked in an oncology center, which is cancer, for those of you who don't know. It's a cancer center at the hospital. And that was probably my favorite job I've ever had because I would talk to people on their deathbeds. Grandfather, keep in mind, who was one of my best friends, one of my heroes, he passed away from lung cancer. So it was something about it, but being able to talk to people when, you know, he passed away when I was 14, so this is about 3 years prior. So being able to talk to people that I feel like I didn't get to have those conversations with my grandfather because I was just so young, it gave me closure. You know, it gave me a little bit of closure in the situation because for those 3 years I was like, it's hard to explain, but you're kind of, you know, I don't want to say this any specific way, but you feel dead inside, you know? life just doesn't have that flavor it once did, and you're young, and, my family didn't even know how to handle it. So it's tough. Like, you kind of have to go through that stuff alone. And my job in my head was to make sure that they always were smiling and feeling better. That was the only way a 14-year-old knew how to think about it. And actually, it's funny enough, I think that's actually where I developed my humor. I think my humor super developed during that stage just because I felt like I needed to fill that void. I saw where the emptiness was, and it was my job to fill it. Problem was, is I still feel empty, right? So it's a lot of these things like start to kind of come downhill. And so that job, I actually met someone who reminded me eerily of my grandfather. And I remember I had a conversation with him. And, later that day, I had a moment to myself, and I kind of just like, felt very emotional. And it was just because I felt like I got closure. It was incredible. But that job taught me a lot about perspective of life, not just because of the conversations, but you realize the regrets people have. I met some extremely interesting characters, people that were caught up in some not so legal businesses, but they loved me. And so they would just disclose everything. And to keep in mind, they're on their deathbed. So they're telling you stuff very, very raw. These are things I wish I would have done differently. Listen, young man, this is what you have to do. So you learn a lot through all of my lessons that I've learned are from real life. And so that job kind of taught me, you do only have one life, and most people make these decisions from complete weakness. And it's so interesting because everyone does it, but I recognized that at 17, everyone was doing this stuff. But if it wasn't for that job, I don't think I would have had that deep, deep, deep perspective, because prior to then I was like, I'm going to be a doctor, because my grandfather always wanted me to be a doctor, who passed away. I'm like, I'm going to fulfill his, his wish, and I'm going to do that. But my cousin actually went to med school, and I was like, it's funny, it sounds like, well, he took care of it, that's how you think. Like, yeah, he took care of it. We don't need two doctors, I feel like one's good enough. And then at 18, 19, I was still working at my dad's, like, from time to time. I think 18, I was actually working, 18, I was working for my dad again, just meal prepping and just going from place to place to deliver, pick up stuff. And the following summer at 19, I had I would say my first real difficult job. And that was at Costco, the chicken guy, while you clicked on this video. I, at the time, had applied to a couple places. Costco is nearly impossible to get into, but I knew someone in there that hooked it up. But they needed people in the chicken department. So I was in the deli, and it was the most difficult job I've ever had in my life to this day. The grind of it, yeah, they pay really, really well. Great benefits, right? Especially, grown people would work there, so it's a job everyone was seeking out. My job was to obviously put the chickens in, take them out, put them in. I was nasty with it by the end. But my job, keep in mind, because I'm the newbie, was to basically just clean. I would have to do the chickens, clean up whatever they didn't finish up, and clean the entire place. That job was so difficult because I could never clean in time. Like, the people that work at Costco understand our machines, so you have to move with this sense of urgency that is unbelievable. That job taught me urgency. How quickly you have to move, man, is unbelievable. You have to just, oh my gosh, dude, you have to move with such an abundance of urgency. You just have to sprint. And there's this girl named Nura who taught me everything. Like, you have someone that kind of teaches you stuff. And I'm just going to down this. Yep, another coffee like a gentleman. Absolutely. So, yeah, and I'm not kidding. She had these hands that were impervious to pain. And she would take and like touch stuff that was piping hot. Like, we're talking about out the oven hot. Ovens, like commercial ovens. And she would just make a look at it. She would go, asa. Like, that's all she would do. Bro, I would yell out war cries, I felt like I was like, dude, like, how is she doing this, And she taught me how to clean everything. And a lot of times I'd have to clock out and I would have to clock out and come back to clean the oven. So a lot of times I was working an hour and a half, not on the clock. And that was because it's just like, for me, it's like, well, I didn't finish it by 9:30, so this is my punishment, you know, like, like I'm not gonna leave and just let it go. You know, that's my work. At the end of the day, like, yeah, you know, most people look like, dude, like, oh, you know, I'm above cleaning. It's like, no, you're not, dude. This is where you're at right now. You do everything you possibly can right now. That's it. No matter what, my standard's my standard. I want to make sure it's clean. I want to make sure everyone's happy. And sometimes be like, yeah, you know, this is a little bit off. And I'm like, you stayed here till 11:30 last night, 2 hours after clocking out. Can't give me a damn good job, you know? But like, that was, their standard was high. And so like from there, they saw my personality, and then they had me move to the front end, which was abundantly better because it made sense to me. Like, I would not follow rules the way everyone else would. Like, technically you have to clock out to be a cashier, but like, what, you make 25 cents more an hour? Like, these are things I'm telling you, I'm recognizing that have actually got me here. They build my instincts. Like, at the end of the day, if they see a long line, they want that line to go down, corporate. So what I would do is I'm like, I don't need an extra 25 cents to take care of these people. I would just hop on a cash register and just take care of people. They loved me. If I saw the door was slammed, I would just run to the door. If I saw that, you know, like someone needed to be sold to, I would just sell to them. It's actually how I learned how to sell. It was the first time I ever sold anything. And they told me, like, Rami, I want you to sell these thing called e-blocks. You know, when those guys come around, they scan your card and like, you know, you're spending like a executive member. That's the shit. That's the shit they'd have me do. And so like my job was to learn how to go over there. And I would forget the first time someone told me to sell, I was super serious. And the guy's like, hey, Rami, what is a compliment you get a lot? I said, I don't know, man. They're like, do people say you have a nice smile and that you're charismatic? I was like, yeah, I get that. And they're like, he looks at me and he goes, use it. And I swear to God, the next time I went to go sell to someone, I sold them. And it's just because I smiled and I was a human being. And I was like, oh, I can be myself and sell. Like, I don't have to do the thing that you think you have to do as a salesman, you know? And so that job I did all through college. I did a bunch of things through college. Like, I have filed, you know, I've had patents that I filed for, got flown out to, and those are stories for another day, but just to kind of get you excited, I guess, maybe for another video to follow. But I had a patent that I came up with. I flew out to California to talk with the CEO of, you know, this corporation. After just hitting up a bunch of people, I was always fiddling around. I was working around with this stupid thing that someone in my city was starting. He wanted to start like this like conglomerate of innovation. And I'm like 19, and what the hell do I know? You know, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, it sounds awesome. You know, so I was like, sure, let's do it. And so I tried a bunch of projects. All of them failed miserably. You know, it's just, it's a lack of skill. You realize that, like, at a certain time, it's a lack of skill. And I'm not kidding. I can literally make a 3-hour video on that alone. On all these alone, technically. But I want to try to speed you up here. So through college and while I was at Costco, I was still trying my hand at a bunch of ventures. Trying this, clothing lines. And none of them were attached to me. Like, I was never a marketer. You know, like I never was the guy who was selling or whatever. It was just trying to figure out like what we would need to do to, you know, to have a halfway decently successful business. So it was like a bunch of this, applications, you know, starting your own app, all these things I've tried. You know, like I was a part of the group that was trying, I should say. Like I said, failed miserably on every possible end. Just awful, you know? But I look back and I'm so happy I did it. And it's because, like, the amount of information you get from failing is unbelievable. Unbelievable. You just start learning all of this stuff, you know? You understand what matters and what doesn't. And then, what is that? That brings me, I went all the way through college. Now, I'm not kidding. So on Sundays for Costco, to kind of go back for a second, they'd have these things called time and a half, like time and a half on Sundays. They loved me so much that they let me for one entire year just work on Sundays. I also earned it. I was also a guy who would just go in and just take care of business, you know? So that's one thing I'll tell you is that's why I don't follow rules the way everyone else follows. And I'm telling you, like, a lot of this stuff comes downhill, you know, as a result of your life experience. Because people look too much like, well, technically this is the responsibility and this is what you... At the end of the day, what you need to do is broaden your scope and say, what is their goal? Why is this my responsibility? Why? Why is this my responsibility to do X, Y, and Z? Why is my job to be on the front end? It's to make sure everything goes smoothly. If you understand that, then you know if there's a long line, I don't need to ask permission to go freaking do X, Y, and Z. I'd get yelled at all the time for not asking permission. but management loved me. It was the supervisors that hated me. That's the point. Because those guys, like, you see it from their perspective. Like, you're a supervisor. I know you're excited because you have the title of a soup. You know, like, I'm not even throwing shade on the person, but some people take their jobs too seriously in that way, where it's like, I need to be looked at seriously. That's what I mean by taking your job seriously. Like, you're taking yourself too seriously. Take your job seriously. Stop taking yourself so damn serious. No one has to listen to everything you say, because honestly, you're wrong a lot. You know, I was never disrespectful. Like I always said, we're always gentlemen. I was always respectful. But that's why management let me get away with a lot, because I got the bigger picture. When I say get away with a lot, they just basically were like, yeah, like we have to have that for other people, because most people don't see it from that perspective. I always had really good instinct on that. It probably started from, the restaurant. Like if you ever see, there's an entire line of people, like, there's a wait for 15 to 20 minutes. Most people just kind of let you go. Or for me, I would look at that and say, go talk to them for a little bit. Hey, listen, what are you guys planning on ordering tonight? Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, this is what I recommend. You make people feel at home while they're waiting. The waiting part that sucks, that no one wants to do, you make them actually look forward to that thing. This is how business is done. You get what I mean? Like, you start understanding, like, when people talk about business, like, they try to get fancy because they suck at everything else. Your business is only as good as people talk about it and what they feel about it, and how you've changed how they feel, how they look, how everything. And so that job at Costco taught me a lot, because I understood a big corporation and even what they see, Fun story about Costco. I don't know if I'm ranting on too much, but this is also when I learned to never lie. So I was late. I was always coming in at like literally like a minute, maybe 30 seconds before I would have been late. That was always my thing. And that's a really, really bad habit. But for me, it's like I hated working for anybody. I hate working for anybody. I really do. And it's just because like you have to follow rules that you just don't agree with all the time. And, it's not that I hate rules. Rules are there for a reason and they're important to have. But rules for the sake of rules, I'm not a fan of, right? So whenever I think about going to work, I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I'd wait till literally the last second, to clock in. So one day I was running really, really late, still clocked in on time, but I parked in the non-employee parking. And so there's a thing on my windshield saying, whoever this is, come to the office. And they knew. I remember I came in a different car that day, so they had no idea that it was me. The only reason why they knew it was an employee is because it was after hours. The next day, I could have easily just ignored it and done my thing. No one would have known. I purposely went to the management's office and I said, hey, I was given this. I'm not going to hide from it. Whatever consequences you have to deliver or whatever punishment, I absolutely will take it. That's my apologies. Just understand it won't happen again. Just stood up. I wasn't trying to hide nothing. I came, I went, and I presented. And I swear to God, after that, management, and he was the store manager, he would just ask me to come into the office just to hang out. Hey, Rami, you mind coming to the office? We would just chit-chat for 15, 20 minutes while I'm on the clock. You want to know why? Because that's character. Most people don't do that stuff. It's those things that separate everybody. I'm telling you, these little things that you pick up on that you're like, this job sucks, I'm in the grind of it, it starts making the world of a difference. And that takes me all the way through college. But I'm not going to, we'll save that for the next one. We'll save the next, for the next one, we'll talk about after college. But my point is all of this is going to be a part of a bigger story. And like I said, I'll do another video on, all the ventures I've tried. And I'm telling you, it's very, very eclectic history. But all of that was through college. And I'm happy. And I'm happy that I did it, I'm thankful for it. If it wasn't for those things, I wouldn't have picked up on certain lessons. What I picked up on is instinct. And listen, I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of this stuff is genetic for me. Not genetic, I should say, but I've had it for a while. Just understanding instinct and what actually matters and what doesn't matter as much. I understand what rules I believe, I should say. In my humble opinion, there's certain rules that I believe need to be there. You show up on time, even uniforms. I am actually all about that because you present yourself in a very specific way, and I want them to understand that this is how we look. Most people are like, dude, let me just, do my own style. No, that's their place, that's their culture. They get to do whatever they want. But stupid little things like, hey, you have to make sure to, clock in and get 25 cents more before we do it because we might get like, first off, I'm making the business more money by doing that. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's where, like, those are stupid little rules in my head. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm not suing anybody. You know, like, I'm not worried about, oh, I get why they do it. But point is everything matters. I learned all of these instincts. I learned how to deal with my very, very first job outside of the restaurant growing up. I learned how to deal with non-so-classy people, you know, a little bit more run down, a little bit more dangerous. You know, like you can tell when you're talking to folk that are like, oh, this guy's willing to stab you. Dealing with that from my very, very first job to almost on a complete other end of the spectrum at a hospital where I'm talking to people on their last breath, you know, that really makes things come clear about the present time, and that's all that you have. You know, what people look back and regret on, you know, you can read it on the internet, but it's different hearing it from someone's words. It's the difference between information and instinct. That's why a lot of people think they can get all this information, you know, by looking up how-to videos on YouTube. And it's like, even if I taught you how to work out, until you go and do that for yourself versus reading papers and assuming that, you don't know the instinct on the fly. You have to build instinct. And that's what it does. It teaches you how to talk to someone in a very specific state. The tone I use with a guy who could be more dangerous is going to be a little bit different from the tone I use with my own grandmother. That's going to be different from someone on their deathbed, or someone that's angry, or someone that's sad, or someone that's super happy. And then even with Costco, you deal with everybody at Costco. One thing I'll say is it's the heartbeat of America. You know, you understand what people look for, like the average American family. I personally think that that's invaluable because you understand what really matters and how, and it's crazy, but people would come to Costco and they feel incredible. In my head, I'm like, I hate this place, you know, and it's just, you know, I loved it in terms of what it provided me. But I always made the joke, I'm like, dude, I was even in college, just all through college, people were like, oh, that's the Costco guy. I'm like, oh, fuck, not the Costco guy, leave me alone, you know, don't call me that. But now I wear it with pride, you know, and like I had to start off doing chickens, learning how to clean, learning how to even do stuff and not get paid for it, learning how to move with urgency, learning how to just make sure everything, you look at everything, is it clean? How does it look? Is everything, did I miss anything? To working in the front end and understanding that there's a time and place for everything, learning how to be a Swiss Army knife, learning how to sell by being yourself. You know, even I was pushing carts. I was, you know, like even understanding, like I would just randomly go out and do carts if I saw that they were behind or understaffed. No one had to tell me to do those things. Like I said, that takes me up to, and then I was getting special treatment as a result of doing those things, and I got to work Sundays. I was very thankful for that. But regardless, I think that takes us to post-college, and that's where we're going to end it. So for the next coffee talk, you're going to have to tune in. This one's a bit long, but this is very much a hangout. I'm not looking to necessarily, you know, have a bunch of views on this video. This is for the people that are here hanging out. I personally love these videos. They're fun for me because it feels like we're actually hanging out, even though I'm talking to myself like it's schizo. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you watching, especially if you made it till the end. Anything you guys want specifically, maybe for the next coffee talk, you're like, I got enough about your work history. I don't want to hear about anything else. Or maybe you want to hear something. I ate that like American Psycho, Jason Bateman. But if there's anything you guys want specifically for the next coffee talk, let me know. Drop it down. Like you said, it's very much a hangout. That's how I want to keep it. I like these videos being just chilling and doing whatever. So I love you guys very much. From Uncle Rami to the Natural Crusaders, I love you guys. Uncle Rami out. Peace. Now I get to eat some damn fruit. I actually start slugging. A little sugar with the coffee.